If you're going to travel to Acadia National Park and have already started planning, then you've discovered how much to do and see there is there. And you've also discovered how tricky planning a trip to Acadia National Park can be. In today's episode, we're going to look at how to visit Acadia National Park. Hi, I'm James Ian, and I've written numerous guides and published several itineraries for Acadia National Park. And I'm going to share with you today 9 easy steps for planning a trip to Acadia National Park. If you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe right now. And if you're watching or listening to this somewhere else, then follow my podcast to get the episodes as they come out. By sharing a step-by-step breakdown of exactly what to do, I'm going to help you plan your own vacation to Acadia. If you don't know and follow these steps, planning a trip can be confusing and overwhelming. I've had many people reach out to me not knowing if they've thought of everything or if there's something that they've missed, and will only discover it when it's too late. That doesn't have to be you. By following these steps, you'll progress through the whole process, and by the end, you'll have an amazing trip planned and booked. Be sure to stay to the end, where I'll be sharing the last and final step that you need to take. It's simple, but it'll save you wasted time when you get to the park. Let's get started.
Welcome to National Parks Collecting with James Ian, the national park expert. He's here to help you have the best national parks trips ever. Get tips, discover hidden gems, and learn all you need to know. This is your path to collecting national parks experiences, memories, and maybe even a stamp or two.
What are the steps to follow to plan a trip to Acadia National Park? Remember to stay to the end, where I'll be sharing my final step. It'll save you valuable time in the park, so you won't want to miss it. The first thing to do is to choose when to visit Acadia. That begs the question, when's the best time to visit Acadia National Park? While the weather in summer, June to August, is lovely, it is also when the park is the most crowded. So to avoid the crowds, September and early October are probably the best time to visit Acadia National Park. Early September is also when the annual Night Sky Festival is held. Now, Acadia has almost no light pollution, particularly on the side of the island away from Bar Harbor, so it's great for stargazing. And in mid-October, the park is ablaze with amazing fall foliage, and this is also a great time for hiking, but it also gets a little more crowded then. Spring, which is April through May, can be rainy and foggy, so I don't recommend that. If you're okay with the crowds, July and August is when the park is at its warmest and you'll enjoy the water activities the most. What's the second step to take when planning an Acadia vacation? The second thing to do when you plan your trip to Acadia National Park is to decide how long to go there for. How many days do you need in Acadia National Park? How many days you spend there will depend on various things, including what time you have available, of course, and what you like to do there. If you only have a weekend, then you'll still have an amazing time, just focusing on the main highlights. However, assuming you have some time available, I recommend at least 4 days for your trip there. The third step in your Acadia trip planning process is to decide how to get there. The most convenient airport for Acadia National Park is the Hancock County Bar Harbor Airport, which is just 13 miles from Bar Harbor, and Bar Harbor is just outside the main entrance to the national park. But it is a small regional airport, and it only has limited domestic flights. The closest main airport is the Bangor International Airport. From Bangor, Maine to Acadia National Park or Bar Harbor is about 51 miles. If you're looking for an even more major airport, then you're looking at the Boston Airport. The easiest way to get to the national park from the airport is to drive. Now, there are no car rentals from the small Bar Harbor Airport, but you can rent a car at Bangor Airport, which I recommend, and then it's just a 50-mile drive from there. You can also, if you don't want to drive, take a bus from Bangor Airport to Bar Harbor, and then of course in Bar Harbor you can connect with the free Island Explorer shuttle bus that has multiple routes around the area, and you can visit most of the park using the shuttle. So you can get by without a vehicle. You won't be able to go to everywhere, like for example the top of Cadillac Mountain, without your own car though. Today, we're looking at a step-by-step process for planning travel to Acadia National Park. The fourth thing to do when planning your Acadia trip is to learn how to get around Acadia National Park. and if you're planning to go there, how to make your reservations for the summit of Cadillac Mountain. You can drive around the entire park, although parking can be a problem. To get to the summit of Cadillac Mountain, which is the highest point in the park and a definite highlight, you will need your own vehicle. However, you'll also need to make a reservation for much of the year. From May through October, there's a timed entry reservation system in place. So be sure to make your reservation as soon as they become available if you're planning to include that in your itinerary. For most of the park, there are free shuttles from Bar Harbor and neighboring villages that go to most of the places in the park, not everywhere. For example, it doesn't go to the summit of Cadillac Mountain, but the Island Explorer shuttle goes to most places. It's not actually run by the National Park Service, but it is free, and it's a great way to get around the park without having to worry about parking. There are 9 different routes that connect Bar Harbor, the National Park, and other villages on Mount Desert Island and on the mainland just near the island. Many of the shuttles have bike racks on the front, which can be great if you want to cycle around some of the historic carriage roads, for example. Even better, the buses stop anywhere that they can safely stop along the route, not just at the official bus stop. So wherever you finish a hike, you can flag one down as long as it's able to pull over safely to stop for you. The Island Explorer runs 7 days a week from late June through Columbus Day, which is the second Monday in October, though there is a reduced service from late August onwards. Before we look at the next steps for planning an Acadia trip, if you're watching this on my @National Parks Collecting YouTube channel and you haven't already, please like and subscribe below. And be sure to stay to the end for the final step in planning your trip to Acadia. It's the step that most people skip, and it will save you wasted time in the park. So be sure to stay to the end for that. What's the next thing to do when you're planning your trip to Acadia National Park? The next thing is to plan your itinerary. You've already done some rough planning in order to determine how many days to go for, and you may have done this more detailed planning already, but if you haven't, now's the time to plan your day-by-day outline of what you'll do. Of course, your plans may change with the weather and other unexpected things, but because Acadia can be busy and because there's so much to do, I recommend planning out your days and then swapping things around if you need to, depending on what's happening when you're actually there. Now, at this point, you may be thinking, well, that's a lot to do. I have a lot of ideas and I'm not sure how to put it all together. There's a lot that goes into planning a trip to Acadia. There are several sections to the park. There's loads, as I said, to see and do. The park's really popular, so it can be crowded. Timing can be really important, make a big difference. So it can be really difficult to know exactly what to do and when. In fact, the number one thing that people ask me about is how to put together an actual itinerary. Like, this step seems to be the trickiest. People worry that they're going to miss out on something. They'll worry that they'll be somewhere when everybody else is in the same place and maybe there was a better time to go there. Sometimes people are traveling with their family who have different levels of activity and mobility, and they worry how to coordinate all of that. So I've created super detailed itineraries for Acadia that take all of this into account. There's options for 1, 2, 3, and 4 days, and they're really designed to take the guesswork out of your trip. They provide an hour-by-hour breakdown, but there's tips, there's timings, there's hike and driving descriptions and maps, there's shuttle stop information. There's basically a one-stop shop. Everything's done for you. You can plug and play and be more flexible with it if you want, but you don't have to. It's absolutely there, and you can just take it and run with it. And it has everything that you need to have an amazing trip. Starts with an overview, gives a detailed one set of glance schedule, and then really detailed breakdown into how to do everything on the schedule. There's also includes a few free bonuses, like an accommodations guide, a dining guide, a shuttle guide. And there's also advice on, if you're staying somewhere other than Bar Harbor, how to adjust the schedule for your timing. There's a link in the description below. Just click on that and it will take you to a page that explains it all in much more detail, and you can purchase them there. Now that you've created your itinerary, what's the next step in your Acadia vacation? The next step is to decide where to stay. Acadia is great in that it has plenty of accommodations very nearby. There are several towns on Mount Desert Island and the Shudik Peninsula, but the main gateway town is Bar Harbor. There's a lot of different accommodation options there. There's a lot of services, so it's super convenient. Also, the Island Explorer shuttle stops there. If you prefer camping, there are some campgrounds inside the national park. There's also a lot of private campgrounds nearby, so there's plenty of camping options for either tents or RVs if you prefer that. What's the next step in your Acadia National Park trip planning process? The next thing to do is to book travel insurance. I know this isn't the fun side of travel, but I think you should always have travel insurance, especially if you're doing things like hiking or kayaking or some other activities. You just never know, right? Good travel insurance will cover things like lost or stolen property, trip cancellation, emergency repatriation. You should always double check the small print, particularly if you are doing different activities. Make sure that you're covered. There's plenty of options out there. A good option that I use and like is TravelX, and there's a link in the description below if you want to take a look at their coverage options. The second last thing to do when planning your trip to Acadia National Park is to decide what to pack, which can also be a little tricky sometimes. Of course, what you take to Acadia will depend somewhat on when you go and what you do there. There is a general packing list on my website. There's a link in the description below that will give you an overview of some things to think about. And you can download a free checklist to make sure that you have everything that you need. So what's the final thing to do when planning your trip to Acadia National Park? So far today, we've followed 8 steps to planning the perfect vacation to Acadia. Stay to the end to hear my final step. It's the one that most people forget. But before we do, if all of this seems a bit much right now, I've actually broken all of this down into a simple 7-day email challenge. You just sign up, the link is in the description below, and then you'll get an email from me, 1 a day over 7 days, that gives you daily action steps to take in order to plan your trip. So you do one, the next day you get another step, you do that, the next day, etc. It breaks it down into really manageable chunks. Just follow the link in the description below the video. Now, as promised, the last thing to do is to get your entrance pass now. You have to pay to enter the park, right? And you can do that when you get there. However, you may find yourself waiting in line at an entrance station, and this can just slow your trip down. But it will save you time if you buy a digital pass in advance, which you can easily do on the National Park Service Recreation.gov website. When you're there, just search for Acadia National Park Site Pass, and then you can view all site passes. If you're planning to visit more than 2 national parks in a year, you can go to REI. There's a link in the description below, and it will take you to the America the Beautiful Pass. And this is an annual pass for up to 4 passengers in a vehicle, and it's available for multiple federal recreation sites around the country. If you want help planning your trip, check the links in the description below. There's a bunch of planning and booking resources there that you can use to plan and book your trip. And keep watching my videos to get even more help so that you can have the most amazing national park vacation ever. And if you want to get notified about the next episode, subscribe and click the link below.